Hi, and welcome to the video for your KE and PE, or kinetic energy and potential energy practice problems. So in this packet, there are sort of like two parts, actually three parts. In part one, you're going to focus on kinetic energy, and it starts with some sort of questions that help you to recall what you know about kinetic energy. For this section here, if you don't remember what the information is, you're going to use the slides from this week. So you're going to use the slides to help you. Okay, so in that part you use the slides, and I'll actually link the slides there. So you use this to fill out, for example, what's the formula used to calculate kinetic energy. You're going to use the slides to help you find that formula. Then the next part is a table, which this table is just designed to help you practice doing the calculations. So this one says complete the table by calculating the KE of the objects using the provided information below. So kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 mv squared, and in all of these problems they give you the mass and they give you the velocity. So if you wanted to calculate the KE for this problem, you're going to plug these numbers into that equation. Now, remember, I like to replace 1/2 with 0.5 because they're the same thing, and it's easier to plug 0.5 into my calculator. So, in my calculator for this problem, I'm going to do 0.5, that's my 1/2, all right, times my mass, which is 0.02, times my velocity squared. Now remember, velocity squared is the same thing as saying velocity times velocity. So I'm going to multiply this number twice. So that's going to be 3.0 times 3.0. Okay? So this is the equation that I'm going to put in my calculator to calculate my KE. 0.5, which is my half, times the mass, times my velocity squared. All right, and I plug that into my calculator. 0.5 times 0.02 times 3 and times 3. All right, so I have my numbers in. Hit enter, and that's my kinetic energy, 0.09. And don't forget, we need to put this in the correct units. For energy is joules, so capital J. So that's my answer for the first one. Okay. We're going to do the same thing for the second one. So in this case, KE is equal. I'm going to start with my half, which again I'm going to write that as 0.5. Okay. My mass is 50. That's next. So 50. My velocity is 11. And remember, since the velocity is squared, I'm multiplying the velocity by itself 2 times. So 11 times 11. All right, so I can go ahead and put that in now, clear that out. So I'm going to do 0.5 times 50 times 11 times 11. And that gives me my KE, 3,025. And I'm not going to forget my units of joules. So this table just helps you get used to practice calculating them. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part is word problems, when you're dealing with word problems. So for the word problems, you're going to read the problem, and you know, since we're dealing with just kinetic, you have to identify your mass and your velocity in the problem. So which numbers are your mass and velocity? So if we look at this problem, it says the velocity of a car is 65 meters per second, and its mass is 2,515 kilograms. What is the KE? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on my numbers, all right, and I'm going to try and figure out what these things are. So in this first part, it says the velocity of a car is. That's my first clue that this number is my velocity. But you can also use the units as well, because remember that the units for velocity is meter per second squared. So I know that this is velocity. Whenever I see meters per second, I know it's velocity. So I'm going to say my V is equal to 65. And my M, which is my mass, they say its mass is 2,515 kilograms. So of course that's my first clue. But also the units, once again. When I see kilograms or kg, that's my unit for mass. Okay, so I know that this is my mass. So mass is equal to 2515. All right. Once I have those numbers now, I can go ahead and plug that into my equation. Ke equals 1/2, which I'm going to put 0.5 instead of 1/2, because that's the same thing, times my velocity, times my mass, times my velocity squared, which I do it as velocity times velocity. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug in those numbers, and just like I did up here, and do the calculation. So I plug those numbers in, and this becomes 0.5 times 2,515 times 65 times 65. Okay, so I plug those into my calculator. 0.5 times 2515 times 65 times 65. Okay. All right, cool. And then I get this huge number for my my velocity, for my kinetic energy. It's a large kinetic energy. So let's go ahead and write this number down. 5312937.5 joules. Okay, well, that huge number. So what is that number exactly? Let's put my commas in. That's 5,312,937.5 joules. That's my kinetic energy. Huge number. Okay. So anyway, so that's what you're going to do for the rest of them. You're going to find the mass and the velocity for these word problems, and then you're going to solve.